Death is the end of biological life, when the body ceases to function and consciousness fades. It marks a transition, feared, mysterious, and inevitable. Today we will learn about the miracles, experiments, and scientific explanations of some people who have returned to life after death. The last breath. It began at 2:43 a.m. In a dimly lit ICU room in Prague, Dr. Lenka Kovacic, a seasoned cardiologist with over 20 years of experience, stood over the still body of Mira Sikora, a 37-year-old linguistics professor who had suffered a massive cardiac arrest in her sleep. Flatline on all monitors, pupils fixed, no pulse. After 7 agonizing minutes of failed resuscitation, Dr. Kovacic finally whispered, "Time of death, 2:43. The nurses began the quiet rituals of post-mortem care. The lights were dimmed. The body, covered respectfully with a white sheet, was left alone as Lenka stepped out to make the call to the family. Then it happened. At 2:50 a.m., 7 minutes after she was declared dead, Mira Sikora sat upright with a violent gasp, eyes wide, fingers clawing at the sheet like she was tearing through water. The nurses screamed. The ECG monitor, long silent, flickered back to life with weak, irregular beats. But it wasn't just the impossible return that sent chills down Dr. Kovacic's spine when she rushed back in. It was Mira's voice. She was whispering, no chanting, in a low, rhythmic tone. The words weren't Czech, not Latin, not even any recognizable modern language. A voice recorder was activated. Linguists would later confirm the utterances bore striking resemblance to Akkadian, a long-dead Mesopotamian tongue not spoken in over 2,000 years. But Mira, prior to this moment, had no exposure to ancient languages beyond basic university electives. She specialized in contemporary European dialects. And when asked, days later, what she saw during those 7 minutes of death, Mira described a vast city built of white stone and silver glass, suspended above clouds with no sun. Towers hummed with soundless vibrations. No people, just presence. It felt ancient, she said. Watching her, she drew it again and again, until Dr. Kovacic, curious and disturbed, sent one sketch to her historian friend at Charles University. The response was immediate. Just 1 week earlier, archaeologists in Iraq had unearthed a Babylonian tablet fragment from a ruined ziggurat near Eridu. It described Arali Sa-Ebu, Ilu, trained roughly as the Silver Sky City of the Watchers. Mira's drawing was nearly identical to a reconstruction of the temple etched on the fragment, a sight no human had seen in over 2 millennia. Something had returned with her, or perhaps something had brought her back. Echoes in the brain. Dr. Elias Varga never believed in souls. A neurobiologist at the forefront of consciousness research, Elias spent his career reducing the mind to circuitry, electrochemical pulses dancing through gray matter. To him, death was an off switch. End of current, end of you. That certainty began to crumble during Project Quiet Mind, a privately funded study conducted in a palliative care wing in Oslo. Over the course of 18 months, Elias and his team monitored 43 terminally ill patients using high-resolution neural sensors, attempting to map the final moments of consciousness. He expected flatlines. He got a puzzle. At precisely the moment of cardiac arrest, the brain would predictably crash, first in the prefrontal cortex, then deeper. But in 21 of the 43 patients, something else occurred. A sudden, intense surge of brain activity between 30 and 90 seconds after death. Not just noise, structured patterns, bursts of synchronized gamma waves in the posterior hot zone, a region associated with dream formation, lucid imagery, and conscious self-awareness. What disturbed Elias most was their shape. Overlaying the post-mortem spikes against REM sleep data yielded eerie similarities. But then they tried something bold. They compared them with fMRI scans of Buddhist monks in deep meditation. The patterns were nearly identical. These patients weren't simply dying, they were experiencing. For a few seconds, sometimes more, they were traversing something that mimicked sleep, dreaming, transcendence. Elias dismissed it at first, an anomaly, a trick of the decaying mind, until patient number 34, a retired pilot named Henrik Waller, died under observation. His EEG displayed the largest gamma spike they'd ever recorded, lasting 4 full minutes. Long after his heart had stopped, Henrik's brain lit up like a storm. But here's the part that changed Elias forever. Henrik's final words, spoken calmly as his vitals began to collapse, were, "I see the White City again, same as last time." "Last time?" Elias asked. Henrik smiled faintly. "I died once before. In '78. Heart attack. Saw it then too. Thought it was a dream. Guess it wasn't." And Henrik died with a look of calm awe on his face. The recordings were archived, but the sponsor behind Project Quiet Mind pulled the funding days later. No explanation. The entire study was locked under NDA. Elias kept a private copy of the brain scans. He still stares at them late at night, watching the waveforms pulse in silence. If death was truly the end, why did it look so much like a beginning? The soldier who returned twice. Private Callum Haynes wasn't supposed to survive the strike. During a NATO training exercise in Wales, a freak lightning bolt arced from a cloudless sky, hitting the 24-year-old soldier dead center. His heart stopped instantly. The medics who rushed to his side would later say he was gone before he even hit the ground. But 3 minutes into CPR, Callum gasped, and then screamed. It wasn't pain, it was confusion, horror, dislocation. "Why are you wearing red?" he shouted at the medics. "Where's my regiment? Where's Captain Marsden?" His accent had shifted slightly, older, sharper, with clipped diction. He recoiled from the digital monitors around him, wide-eyed like a man who had seen demons. Over the next week, Callum barely slept. He kept sketching battlefield layouts none of his comrades recognized. Muddy fields, crumbled walls, breech-loading rifles. He spoke of cavalry charges, faulty orders, and the stench of black powder. When prompted under hypnosis, he gave a name, Elias Roundtree, born 1838, enlisted in the British 5th Infantry. He claimed to have died at Spion Kop, a bloody hilltop battle in the Second Boer War, struck by a bullet to the chest. He remembered the blood bubbling in his throat, the cries around him turning to silence. Callum had never heard of the Boer War before this. His parents thought it was PTSD. His commanding officer flagged him for psych evaluation. But then came the twist. A local historian, Dr. Amelia Crowthorne, visited after hearing about the soldier's strange outbursts. Curious, she searched British military archives and found a digitized letter, unearthed only months earlier in a sealed officer's chest. It was dated January 25th, 1900. The final words were chilling. "If I fall today, and some soul finds these words, let it be known, I died seeing a white city in the clouds, silent as snow, shining like a mirror. It welcomed me. I do not fear it. E. Roundtree." Dr. Crowthorne showed the letter to Callum. His hands trembled, his face drained of color. "I wrote this," he whispered. "No," she said. "He did, over 100 years ago." In follow-up EEG scans, his brain displayed post-death gamma spikes, nearly identical to those found in Project Quiet Mind, despite Callum being very much alive. The military sealed his file. Callum was discharged quietly and now lives alone in the countryside. But he still wakes some nights, covered in sweat, whispering, "Not again. Don't send me back there again." He insists the lightning didn't just kill him, it ripped something open. The DNA memory theory. Dr. Lourdes Nera never believed in myths, only markers. She was a rising star in genetic anthropology, obsessed with how trauma and memory shape the human genome. Her work focused on epigenetics, the idea that experiences, especially traumatic ones, can alter DNA and be passed down. But nothing in her research prepared her for Isabella Torres. Isabella was a 29-year-old barista in Quito, Ecuador, who'd never traveled more than 100 miles from home. No degree, no known indigenous ancestry, but after a near-drowning accident in the Amazon River, she emerged, changed. For days, she spoke in a language no one recognized. Not Spanish, not Quechua. Villagers thought it was glossolalia, a spiritual fit. But when a university linguist was called in, they made a stunning discovery. She was speaking Puquina, an extinct tongue believed to predate the Inca, dead for over 1,000 years. And she wasn't just speaking it, she was chanting it, singing. When shown images of ancient ceremonial sites, she pointed to one particular pre-Incan ruin in the Andes, known only to archaeologists. She whispered, "We offered breath to the gate there." Dr. Nera was brought in after a video of Isabella's episode leaked. Intrigued and skeptical, Lourdes ordered a full genome sequence. What she found shouldn't have been possible. Within Isabella's DNA was a rare mitochondrial haplogroup previously seen only in a small cluster of 2,000-year-old remains excavated near Lake Titicaca. Not only was the haplogroup extinct in modern populations, it included a mutation never documented before, a sequence Lourdes had no reference for. She dubbed it the Echelle variant. Further interviews with Isabella revealed a terrifying consistency. She described the exact same city of silver skies seen by Mira Sikora in Prague, and by the soldier Callum in his post-lightning visions. "It's a place you forget until you go," Isabella whispered. "They don't speak in sound. They pull memory out of you, and if you lie, you fall." When pressed to explain what falls, she simply replied, "The part of you that was never yours to keep." Dr. Nera's findings were submitted to a major journal, but within days, her lab was visited by anonymous government officials. The results were quietly withdrawn from publication. She was told the data had national security implications. Now retired, Dr. Nera keeps the raw genetic sequence on an encrypted drive. "Whatever that mutation is," she says in a rare interview, "it's not just a biological anomaly, it's a message encoded in flesh. And I think it remembers things we've forgotten how to dream." The experiment that wasn't meant to work. In the sterile underground laboratory of Neurotech Dynamics, a team of scientists gathered for a project no one outside the company knew about. Their mission? To debunk the myths around consciousness after death by recording every measurable signal as the brain shuts down. Lead researcher Dr. Mia Lang was cynical. She had seen too many pseudoscientific claims and was determined to expose near-death phenomena as nothing more than dying neurons firing off last gasps. For 6 months, they prepared the post-mortem brain activity protocol, a complex setup of EEG caps, quantum sensors, and audio recorders designed to capture brain waves and any unexpected signals after clinical death. On the night of the first test, a terminal cancer patient named Robert Hale, a 68-year-old retired engineer, was placed on full life support in the lab's observation chamber. Electrodes lined his scalp. The cameras recorded every breath. The moment his heart stopped was marked by a sudden silence, until, unexpectedly, a sharp spike of electrical activity surged through the sensors. But that wasn't the strangest part. Buried within the data, the AI-driven audio filter isolated a faint, human voice, at first unintelligible, buried beneath white noise. Hours later, Dr. Lang and her team slowed the recording down and reversed it. The garbled voice suddenly became clear. It whispered distinctly, "You are not alone here." No one spoke in the lab. The room froze. Mia ran the clip again and again, cross-referencing the waveform with the electrical brain spikes. The voice was synchronized with the final gamma wave bursts. Had they really captured a message from beyond? The project's backers, a shadowy consortium known only as the Ashel Group, immediately ordered the footage sealed and all research halted. Months later, Mia discovered a hidden folder in the company servers titled Return, containing more recordings, all with the same reverse voice. She reached out to a cryptographer friend who suggested the phrase might be a warning, or an invitation. Mia's skepticism cracked, because if death was truly the end, how was anyone or anything communicating after the last breath? The pattern across belief. Across continents and centuries, death has whispered its secrets in myriad tongues. But what if, beneath the diversity, a hidden pattern connects the experiences of those who have stood at the edge? Dr. Samira Al-Farouqi, a cultural anthropologist and expert in comparative religion, had spent years gathering hundreds of near-death testimonies from around the world. Her goal was simple: find the common threads behind death's veil. What she uncovered was far from simple. From the icy tundras of Siberia to the burning sands of the Sahara, people who had died and come back told stories of different gods and guardians: a Hindu Yama, a Christian angel, a shamanic spirit guide. Yet the setting of these encounters was almost always the same. They described a vast geometric realm, a place of shimmering lights, endless corridors in perfect symmetry, almost like a crystalline labyrinth or an ancient temple. What caught Samira's attention most was a centuries-old Sufi manuscript she discovered hidden in a Moroccan library, authored by a mystic named Ibn al-Nuri. The manuscript contained a detailed geometric diagram, an interlocking pattern of stars and polygons, said to represent the threshold of souls. What stunned Samira was when she compared this diagram to drawings made by Sarah, a 7-year-old girl who nearly drowned in the Amazon and returned speaking in tongues, a subject Samira had interviewed herself. Sarah's drawings were childlike yet precise, lines, stars, and shapes strikingly similar to Ibn al-Nuri's mystical diagram. Could it be a universal map, a cosmic gateway? Samira theorized that across cultures, what changed wasn't the place, but the face of the entity guiding souls, colored by belief systems and expectations. But the realm itself, the structure beneath the stories, remained constant. Maybe, she whispered in a lecture hall packed with scholars, death is not a door to different places, but to the same place seen through different eyes. But as she spoke, a chilling question lingered. Who or what built this place? The mirror door. After her near drowning, Elena Marquez woke with a compulsion she couldn't explain. Once a quiet, practical librarian in Lima, she suddenly spent hours every day in her tiny apartment, covered in paint and ink, producing artwork unlike anything she had ever created. Doorways, mirrors, endless reflections. Each painting showed a figure cloaked in shadows, always lurking just beyond the frame, watching but never revealing a face. Elena claimed the figure appeared to her in dreams, the same figure she'd seen as she slipped beneath the water that day, a silent guardian at the edge of oblivion. At first, her friends thought the art was a cry for help, a symptom of trauma. But when a visiting Peruvian archaeologist, Dr. Mateo Rojas, examined the paintings, he was stunned. One doorway depicted in the paintings perfectly matched a megalithic stone gate known as the Puerta de Hayumarca, high in the Andes, long rumored to be a portal to the underworld. The gate's exact geometric shape, carved symbols, even the weathered patterns on the stone surface were captured with uncanny precision. How could Elena have painted such a thing, never having been near the ruins or even seen photographs? As Elena described the gate, she spoke of an overwhelming coldness and a humming vibration, a presence waiting beyond the portal. She said the figure in her paintings was not a threat, but a watcher, an ancient sentinel guarding the doorway between worlds. One night, Elena awoke to find her paintings eerily changed. The shadows within seemed to move. One mirror rippled like water. She reached out her hand, and the glass pulled at her fingertips. Terrified yet fascinated, Elena began researching the myths surrounding the Puerta de Hayumarca, learning that local legends spoke of spirits trapped between worlds and travelers lost forever beyond the mirror gates. Her obsession deepened. She began questioning if the doorway she painted was less a memory and more a doorway she'd been shown, a place between life and death that few ever returned from. The watcher, she said, was waiting for something, or someone. Time doesn't work there. Time, as humans know it, is a river flowing steadily forward. But for those who have crossed death's threshold, only to come back, time unravels into something stranger, something almost impossible. Dr. Adrian Locke, a theoretical physicist specializing in relativity and quantum mechanics, had always approached near-death claims with scientific skepticism, until he encountered Lila Grant. Lila was a survivor of a near-fatal car crash. When she awoke in the hospital, her story was chilling. In that place, she said, voice trembling, seconds stretched into forever. I saw centuries unfold, but it all happened in moments. I watched empires rise and fall, stars being born and dying. Time folded back on itself, like a ribbon twisting endlessly. Adrian was intrigued. Could this be explained by physics? He began running simulations, not on consciousness, but on the behavior of time near extreme gravitational fields, black holes, wormholes, and the theoretical bridges between dimensions. His research uncovered that in such environments, Time could dilate, loop, and fracture. Seconds on Earth might correspond to years or millennia in a singularity's grip. What startled him most was when he combined his models with Project QuietMind's brainwave data. The post-death gamma spikes seemed to mimic the timing of those warped, relativistic flows. But then came the breakthrough and the glitch. In one simulation designed to map time distortions, the system suddenly output a set of GPS coordinates. An unmarked location in the Atacama Desert. Adrian dismissed it at first, thinking it was a computational error. But satellite images showed something strange. An unregistered structure buried beneath the sand. Geometric, symmetrical, and unmistakably artificial. Was this the earthly anchor of the city of silver skies survivors described? Or was the glitch a message? A sign that time's broken threads connected to something hidden, something waiting? Adrian's work was promptly cut short by his university's board. Funding was withdrawn, the data locked away. Yet alone in his office, Adrian keeps returning to the coordinates, wondering, if time is broken there, what else lies beyond the fold? Someone is trying to come back. In the quiet hallways of St. Gabriel's Hospice, where life's final moments are cradled in compassion, Nurse Amara Silva noticed a strange pattern, one that would chill her to the bone. Over the course of several weeks, multiple dying patients described the same apparition, a shadowy figure standing silently at the edge of their beds. No face, just a presence, watchful, waiting. They whispered a name, always the same name, Ashel. At first, Amara thought it was a coincidence, perhaps a collective hallucination born of shared fear. But the descriptions matched in eerie detail. A tall, cloaked figure with piercing eyes, neither wholly human nor divine. One patient, an elderly man named Jacob, told Amara, "He watches, waiting for the right moment. I feel his breath on my neck." Curiosity turned to obsession. Amara began discreetly recording these encounters, cross-referencing them with local folklore and obscure texts. Her research led her to the Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient manuscripts long thought lost. There, in faded Hebrew script, she found a mention of Ashel, described as a watcher at the threshold, a guardian standing between life and death, tasked with monitoring souls seeking to return. Terrifyingly, some texts suggested that if Ashel called your name, it meant your soul was not yet ready to pass on. And worse, that something was trying to cross back into the living world. Amara confided in her colleagues but was met with skepticism and concern for her mental health. One night, as a violent storm raged outside, Amara was alone on her shift when she heard it, a soft whispering at the end of the hall, a voice calling her own name. She turned. Nothing was there, but on the patient chart left on her desk was scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. The door's opening. The door opened. The threads finally converged in the unrelenting heat of the Mojave Desert, where time seemed to ripple and reality frayed at the edges. Dr. Elias Varga, Dr. Lourdes Nira, Nurse Amara Silva, and a reluctant Elena Marquez were drawn here by a series of inexplicable clues. Coordinates from Dr. Locke's simulations, ancient texts deciphered by Samira al-Faruqi, and the whispered warnings of Ashel. They stood before a hidden archaeological site, a massive stone structure half swallowed by sand and wind, a gateway carved with celestial symbols, matching every drawing and vision that had haunted them. Inside, Neurotech Dynamics had secretly installed an advanced EEG machine to conduct what was meant to be a final experiment, to map brain activity during clinical death, and this time to push boundaries. The subject, Callum Haynes, the soldier whose memories defied time. As Callum lay on the cold metal table, electrodes attached, the ritual began, scientific protocols merging with whispered invocations from the Dead Sea Scrolls. When his heart stopped, silence filled the chamber. Then, as predicted by previous studies, his brain surged with gamma activity. But this time, the spike did not fade. It held. For 72 minutes, the room filled with a low hum, shadows dancing on ancient walls. On the EEG monitor, a single word began to materialize, slowly, painfully. Return. Callum's body remained cold, unresponsive. Then the unthinkable happened. The door at the far end of the chamber creaked open. A flicker of movement. A silhouette stepped forward, familiar yet impossible. Was it Callum's soul? Or something else, summoned through the doorway no living person was meant to open? Dr. Varga's voice trembled. We thought death was the end, but maybe it's just the beginning of something far stranger. As the watchers stared, the figure vanished, leaving behind only the echo of a whisper. Not all who cross the door come back the same. The experiment was shut down, the site sealed. Official records vanished, but those involved knew the truth. The doorway was real, and it had been opened.